Hi all, welcome to ESI Cloud Trainings. My name is Shalini Nerella. As discussed in the demo session, the highlights of this course includes in detail explanation on every option, discussion on the certification as well as the interview questions, practical session with real-time examples, and summarization of the session with presentation slides. Right? I'll also provide you an account where you'll be having access to all the components. So the format of the session is going to be this way. The first 10 minutes, we will discuss if we have any queries from the previous session, and we will then continue with the session for that day. Right? So the goal is that by the end of the course, you should be very much comfortable with Boomi and right away get started with the project. So let's get started with the day one session. The agenda plan for today is we'll first have an overview of the Dell Boomi platform. I will then provide you the account access. We will then set up the runtime engine, which is the Atom, and we'll see the Atom directory structure. We will then do a simple integration. We'll try to connect to disk and retrieve the files out of it. We will then execute the process and see how the Atom directory data has been populated. Right? So let's get started. So as we discussed, Dell Boomi is industry's first fully on-demand integration platform as a service. It is a complete iPaaS solution, which means you don't have to install any software onto your system. You just go to your browser and say platform.boomi.com. So just by saying platform.boomi.com on your browser, you'll be logged on to Dell Boomi AtomSphere. So this is how the login UI looks like. And if you see here, there is something called platform status and enhancements. So any information related to the Dell Boomi platform will be provided here. So if there is any downtime, it will be notified here, right? You have something called statistics here. So it gives you the system health dashboard. It gives you the count of number of integrations processed in last 30 days, the number of atoms deployed in cloud and on-premise, the mappings index and the functions indexed. Right? And if you click on performance history here, it gives you the daily metrics of the integration processes. Right? And if you click on notifications, it gives you any downtime related information and also release schedule information. So which means Dell Boomi comes up with releases every month. The release can include fixes to the existing bugs or new enhancements. So we also have the release control window, which is 2 weeks before to the actual release date. So during this release control date, you'll be provided with the updates. So you can apply those updates to your Atom and see if any of your existing processes have been affected with the updates. You can either report to the Boomi support team in case of any issues, or you can fix the processes and deploy them onto the production. Right? So we'll discuss about this more in our sessions. So now, as discussed, this is the login UI. Once you're added to any account, you'll be provided with email address and password. So you can provide them and log into Dell Boomi AtomSphere. So this is how your UI looks like. So this is the lifecycle panel. Build, deploy, manage. So build is where we develop all our processes. Deploy is where we deploy our processes behind the firewall, and manage is where we see the status of your process executions, whether success or failure. So we'll see all this in detail. And if you click on here, you'll be able to see any notifications of your account. If say there is any certification expiration, all that will be notified here. And this is the account name. So in real time, say if you're added to 2 to 3 different accounts, you just by clicking on switch account here and clicking on search, you'll be listed out all the accounts you're added to. So you can just go on top of the account name and you'll be logged onto that account. Right? So here we have the support options provided by Dell Boomi, the user guide, support, community, and feedback. We'll see that in detail. And our training is all about Dell Boomi AtomSphere. Apart from Atom Sphere, we also have Master Data Hub, API Management, and Boomi Flow, which are becoming very popular. And to the end here, you have something called dashboard. So this, remember that this is shown only to the administrators. So this dashboard actually offers the administrators a location to quickly view a summary of the recent activities within the account. So we have three types of dashboards: account dashboard, HTTP status dashboard, and real-time dashboard. So account dashboard provides you the summary of the integration activities. So with respect to account level or your atom or molecule level. Also we have HTTP status dashboard, which gives you the metrics of the web requests, and real-time dashboard, which gives you the metrics of the real-time integrations, right? So this is the login welcome page. Here you will have the recent processes, the recent components, and this gives you a shortcut to create a process, an API, flow service, and you can install the runtime from here, atom, molecule, etc. And this is the component explorer. Component explorer is a tree-like structure. And to the end, we have here browse process library. So the process library allows master accounts to publish processes and API components to sub accounts, which can serve as template for new processes. So you can just say install, and this process will be installed onto your component explorer, right? So here we have the account dashboard. So this gives you the offline atoms, the process errors, execution count in a graphical representation. Right? We'll discuss about this in detail. So here let's see the support options now. So user guide. User guide gives you a clear documentation. So if you have any issue, you can just type in here and you will have a clear documentation for that particular component. And if you click on support here, so we have 24/7 support. The contact support we have is like you can create a chat, or you can open a case, and you can also call them. Right? So if I click on open a case, you need to provide all the complete information: the product, the severity, the subject description, and the process URL. And if you click on submit, the case will be taken up by Dell Boomi platform support team, and they will get in contact with you and will resolve the issue as soon as possible, right? And we also have community, a very user friendly community we have. So if you have any question, you can just type in the question here and you will provided with the relevant answers. Forums, knowledge centers, so you can click on any content and you can read through it. And you can also publish your ideas. You can add a new idea, you can view all ideas, and you can view your ideas. So if you like any idea, you can vote up for it, and after certain votes, Dell Boomi will implement that idea and will come up in the upcoming releases for you, right? So we also have feedback, so that will take you to the ideas page here, right? So now this is about the Dell Boomi support options provided to us, right? So now we'll discuss more about the build page. We'll try to develop a process and execute it, right? So as discussed, this is the component explorer, which is a tree-like structure. This will be the root name, and under that you can create a new component, a new folder. You can rename or provide permissions. So because this is an IPA solution, it is better we create a folder on our own, because your processes can be viewed by others as well and modified. And so we'll create a folder with our name first. here. And now you can go and create a new component, a new folder again. You can rename, copy, delete, and set permissions to it. So let's go and create a component. So a component is nothing but a reusable object, right? So it can be created and referenced across multiple shapes and multiple processes. So all these can be used across different processes. So at first we'll go and create a process. So process is nothing but a core integration component. It is a workflow which moves documents from one application to another application. So we'll first create a process and I'll name it as disk retrieval. So usually asked question would be this: what is the difference between a process and an integration? Right? So process is a single group of connected shapes that perform a desired action, whereas integration refers to the total integration solution for a particular desired action. Right? Okay. So once you create a process, you'll be shown up with this start shape. So start shape types are connector, trading partner, data pass through, and no data. So one of the most asked certification question is this: what are the different types of start shape? So we have connector, trading partner, data pass through, and no data. So when you select connector, which means at your start shape itself, you are connecting to a connector and retrieving data out of it. Right? So trading partner is for EDI, B2B integrations, and data pass through is when you want to send data from your main process to sub process. We use data pass through. And no data, which means if your start shape has to start with no data, we'll then select no data. We'll discuss about all these in detail, but first we'll start with no data. And remember, here there is something called process modes: general mode and low latency mode. So this is usually asked interview as well as certification question. What are the two types of process modes? General mode, low latency mode. We'll discuss this in detail, but remember that we have two types of process modes. Okay, and we selected no data as a start shape. So you can give some name here, start. Okay. So here we see different types of shapes. So we have execute shape, logical shape, connector shapes. So execute shapes manipulates or transforms data. So these manipulates or transform data. And logic shapes control the flow of data through your process. Right? They control the flow of your data. And connectors is where you get data in and out of your process. So you'll have a number of connectors here. So there are different types, again, application connectors, standard connectors, and custom connectors. So application connectors are listed out here. These are standard connectors and custom connectors where you can create your own connectors as well and publish to your account. Right? So now because we want to connect to disk and retrieve data, I will take disk out from here. Right? So also if you see here, this is the process name. It gives, this shows you the folder, and you can add a description. It is always good to give a description to your process. This process retrieves files from the source. If you click on here, options, as we discussed, there are two types of modes: general mode, low latency mode. We can set extensions here. We'll discuss in detail about it. And add note. So if you want to add some note here, what this shape does or any other information, you can just give that note. This component retrieves data from disk. So if you click on here, it gives you the note and also added by name. Right? Show navigation gives you where you'll have to navigate. If say it is a very large process, you can navigate through your process here. And this is to arrange. So if you have any jumbled components, they can be arranged by saying arrange, save, then arrange, etc. And these are usually used for large processes with more components, right? So now coming to a process, start shape with no data, and then we have connected to disk. So now we'll try to configure the disk. Here we have general and parameters. So in general, we have connector called disk here, and action can be get and send. So one usually asked certification question is this. Say in my start shape, if I select disk, if I select the connector and say disk, you'll be able to see action only get, because by then I don't have any data to send. So that reason they usually ask certification question is, when you select disk as the start shape, what is the action being shown? Get, get and send, send. So the answer is get, right? Whereas if it is not in start shape, you'll have both get and send. Okay. And every connector has connection and operation. So connection specifies where I'll have to connect to, right? So I'll have to specify where I'll have to connect to, and operation specifies how I'll have to connect to. So now before to that, I need to place files on my system. So let's place the files. So we'll place them in C drive. Demo files. I'll create two folders, in and out. In folder, I will place these three files. So they are not copied. So let's copy them and paste them here. Okay. So we'll now try to retrieve all these three files that are in this particular path. So in the connection, I have to specify the path here. So connection specifies where I'll have to connect to, and operation specifies how I'll have to connect to, which means which files I'll have to retrieve. So when I say star, it retrieves all the files. Or if you want to say only files starting with A, I can say A star. So you can specify the filter here. And matching file types can be wildcards, regular expressions, and exact. So maximum files to read, if you say 0, it means it reads all the files. And you can also specify how many files you want to read. When you say 1, it reads only the top file. So in this way, you can define maximum files to read and delete files after reading. Say in real time, a client asks you to delete the files once after they are read. So in that situation, you can select this, delete files after reading. And you see that this is now not enabled, and if I check this box, this is now enabled. So fail if unable to delete files, and if the process fails to delete the files, the process should fail. So if you check this, the process fails. So this way you can configure your operation and give a meaningful name to it. So operation specifies how I'll have to connect to, connection specifies where I'll have to connect to. And now I'll place a stop shape here. Okay, so now our process is all ready. Now in order to execute this process, I'll need a runtime engine. right? I'll need a runtime engine, which is nothing but an atom. So you see here, if I say test, if I click on test, it shows me select atom. And here it shows you enable Boomi test cloud. So Boomi by default gives cloud test cloud atom to all the accounts by default. So this is a cloud atom. So there are actually two types of atoms. So now let's first install the runtime engine. So you see here, if you click on atom here, if you try to install it, it tells you here atom setup preference, local or in the cloud. So there are actually two types of atoms, local atom and a cloud atom. So local atoms allow you to integrate applications which are behind your firewall and also the cloud applications. But the cloud atoms can only integrate data between your cloud applications. So they cannot integrate data with the behind the firewall applications like your database, FTP, SFTP. All this comes under behind the firewall applications. So they can only be executed with a local atom. An atom have to be installed in the server where you are communicating to. Right? So you'll see your operating system based on your system configuration. You can select the operating system and you can download the installer. So these are the security options which can allow you to download the installer, right? So once I click on download installer, so this opens for you. This gets downloaded for you. So Atom is nothing but a small runtime engine that gets downloaded onto your system. So it's an executable file that gets downloaded onto a system. So now I have to say run as administrator. If I don't install this saying run as administrator, it gives you an error. So say run as administrator, and this takes a while for installing the Atom. So this takes a while for installing your downloading and installing the Atom. So here comes the Atom setup wizard. You can just click on next, and this you have to provide the email address and password that you used to sign into your Boomi Atom sphere. Atom name should be a meaningful name should be provided here in order to identify your atom. Say in real time you have dev atom, QA atom, prod atom. So you need to clearly identify the dev, QA atoms. So here I'll be providing Shalini dev. And you'll have to provide a meaningful atom name here in order to identify your atom. And if you're installing this atom under a proxy, if you're using it under a proxy, you have to use the proxy settings here. So you can click on next and this starts. So here it lists out all the accounts you are registered to, and you to whichever account you want this atom to be installed, you'll have to select that. So now I want the atom to be installed in this account, so I'll be selecting that and say next. It gets installed in this particular atom in directory, sorry, and say next. Next. This takes a while now. So once we are done with this, once the atom is installed, you should be able to see the atom here when you click on test. So also we have revision history, something called revision history. So Boomi maintains versioning of the components. So as we told, component is something that can be reused. So say for example, now this operation, I have to select the operation. So you'll see that I can select this operation, which means it is a reusable. And now you'll see here the connectors, connections and operations. So all this can be reused. So any component that can be reused has a revision history. So it maintains all the complete revision. So now say we are on version 1. Now say I have modified this and saved here. So you'll see that the version is maintained. So this comes as version 2. And now I can go back to version 1 by clicking on here. So it clearly shows you what change has been done and who has modified that version. So I can go back and save this. So now if I open this retrieval from over here, I'll be able to see this one. And here I have version 3. And now if I open connection, so start shape, stop shape doesn't have any versions. Now if I say connection here, and connection also has version, revision history, and operation also has revision history. Right? So now our atom is been installed. You should be able to see the atom here. It's still not done, we'll see. And now if I go to C drive, Boomi atom sphere, atom. So this is the atom directory that has been installed. So you'll see that number of folders have been created. So bin folder where you can restart your atom, and atom VM options can be modified, etc. Component is empty as of now. Connector is empty. Data is empty. So all these are empty. Now we'll try to execute the process and see how the atom directory data has been populated. Right? So let me refresh this. So now you'll be able to see the atom here. So I can click on this atom and say run test. So remember, because I'm connecting to disk, I have to have the atom installed in this particular server from where I want to fetch the files, because that is behind the firewall application. So I'm using a disk connector where the atom has been installed. So I'm retrieving files from the server where the atom is installed, right? So now if I see here, on each shape, if I click on, you'll be able to see certain logs down. So you can see this connection, shape source data, connection data. So shape source data specifies what data is coming from the previous shape. For example, from disk to next shape, I'm getting this document. So it specifies the document coming from the previous shape. And connection data specifies the data coming from that particular shape. So these are called component logs. If you click on each component, you'll be able to see the logs here. So these are called component logs. So it specifies the file name, account 1, account 2, account 3, and the folder from where they are being retrieved. Also the size in KB. And you can also view the document here. This is the document coming. Clear? So now to the next shape, if I click, the document coming from the previous shape will be the shape source data here. And you can also see the logs. So these are called component logs. And if I click on here on the process name, you'll be able to see view log. So this is the process log. It gives the log of the complete process. So any error, anything can be easily identified here. It will be identified in red color. You can also see the status, debug, info, warning, and severe. If there are any errors, it will be shown here in severe. Clear? So I have now 3 documents coming out from here. So they are account 1, account 2, account 3, which are there in my C drive, demo files in folder, account 1, account 2, account 3. So it is the same that has been coming up from here. So see here, it will be the same 1564862. And here you'll be able to see 1564862. So this is how we connect to the server and fetch the files out of it through Boomi. So now that we have executed this process, we can now see how the atom directory structure is been populated. So now let's go back to Boomi atoms pure atom. So now you'll see here component. So there are three components. So earlier this was empty and now it has been populated, correct? So now if I go here, we'll see what are the components here. So this is process is a component, and you'll see here in revision history, you'll be able to see the component ID here. So see here 392 ending with 392. So 392. So this is one component. Connection is one component. So here you'll be able to see 1BD1. So 1BD1. And also operation. Operation is one component with revision history 357 is the component ID. So your component is being populated. And connector, earlier this was empty because you have now executed this connector. The connector folder has been populated with disk. So here you'll be able to see data. So .dat file, you'll be able to see here the same data. So it is the same content will be shown here, and in executions you'll be able to see this execution ID and libraries. So all the libraries required for executing your processes will be shown here. Need logs, container logs. So it is executed now. So container log is created here. Messages, resources, temp folder, update folder, work folder. So in work you'll be able to see the disk, and in lib you'll be able to see the required folders, required libraries for executing your process, right? So this is how the directory structure will be populated, right? So we have done with our first integration, connecting to disk and fetching data out of it. We executed the process and seen how the atom directory structure has been populated, right? So we also thought of giving account access, right? So if you click on this account name here and down, you'll have setup. Under setup, you'll be having something called user management, right? So I can delete the existing user this way, and I can add a new user. So I can add, and here you can specify the roles required. So whether an administration role should be provided or standard user role should be provided. You can also create your own custom roles. So you can create a role name and you can create all the custom roles here. You can define all the custom roles, right? So once an user is added here, he'll be provided with the email address and password. So with that, you'll be able to log into the username to the Dell Boomi Atomsphere, right? So now, so let's get back to the presentation slides, right? So as discussed, we have gone through the overview of Dell Boomi platform, provided account access, we have set up the runtime engine, the atom, and we have seen the atom directory structure, and we have done a small integration by connecting to disk and retrieving files out of it, and we also have seen how the atom directory data has been populated on executing the process, right? So as discussed, parts of the Atomsphere UI. So these are called the administration links. This will be called as lifecycle panel, and this is the welcome tab. And these are the process action buttons. This is the process canvas, shapes palette, component explorer, and this is the universal component bars, right? So it is good to remember what are they actually called as. Then, so as we discussed, dashboard is of three types: account dashboard, HTTP dashboard, real-time dashboard. Account dashboard provides a summary of the integration activity at both account level and atom, molecule, and cloud runtime. HTTP dashboard provides a summary of the HTTP service logs, mainly logs the metrics of the incoming web service requests. Right? Whereas real-time dashboard, they provide a summary of the published web service processes. They are configured as low latency. So when we say low latency, it does not capture any execution history in the process reporting page. Right? And this is one more usually asked question, what all comes under the Boomi support. So we have user guide, support, community, feedback will be the help options provided by Boomi. And as we discussed, shapes, we have execute shapes, logical shapes, and connectors. So execute shapes, they manipulate or transform the data, and they are 11 in number. Whereas logic shapes, they control the flow of the data throughout the process, and there are 10 in number. Connectors, they are standard connectors, application connectors, and custom connectors. Right? So connectors, they are used to get data in and out of the Boomi process. Custom connectors are something where you can create connectors on your own by using connector SDK, and you can make them available to your account. And if you want, you can reach out to Boomi support team so they can be available throughout all accounts. Right? So next comes Atom. So Atom, as discussed, is the runtime engine. We have two types, local Atom and a cloud Atom. So local Atom, for accessing your local as well as cloud applications, we use local Atom. Cloud applications, where you'll have to integrate data only between the cloud applications, and you can have cloud Atom. So cloud atoms provided by Boomi are Dell Boomi Atom Cloud, EU Atom Cloud, Test Atom Cloud. So everyone has access to run production processes on Dell Boomi Atom Cloud. EU Atom Cloud, it's European Union Atom Cloud, which is provisioned for account. You have to request for this. Test Atom Cloud is only with accounts with environments and test connectors. So when you have test connectors enabled, you will be having this Test Atom Cloud. Execution modes. So there are two types of modes, test mode and deploy mode. So we were executing the process in test mode. Remember, on process to the end, we have clicked on test and we executed the process by selecting the atom. So that is called test mode. And we also have deploy mode, which we'll be discussing later in classes. So difference is that test mode has a limitation where we can only execute 100 documents and 10 MB data. Whereas for deploy mode, we have no limitation. And atom directory structure. So here you can see how the atom directory structure is being populated. These are usually asked interview as well as certification questions. So maybe all might not be clear for you now, but later at the end of our session, we will then be able to understand in detail at the end of the course. But for now, you can just have an overview. So bin atom executable and JVM config files will be there here. So for any atom configuration changes, we can go here and modify them, restart. Atom VM options can be modified. And configuration files will be your connector library file. So whenever you execute a connector, that particular connector will be populated here in connector folder. Data, the document data files used during execution will be stored in data. And so there is something called document cache, which we will be seeing it later. So that it is the temporary directory created while executing document cache. Logs, daily container logs, HTTP server logs, all will be stored here in logs. Settings, extension values or schedules. So we'll be discussing all this in detail later, but these values will be stored in settings folder. User lib, additional libraries for some connectors, custom scripts, etc. will be stored in user lib. And execution, last run date and last successful run date and dynamic process property values will be stored in execution folder. And certificates and passwords will be stored under atom conf key store trust store. For persisted properties, we'll discuss what a persisted property is, but the value for that is stored in atom work CDC. Queues information is stored in atom folder queues. Metrics are stored in Atom execution folder and metrics. So as I told, all this might not be clear to you now, but at the end of the course, you can just revise this back again. You'll be having clear information. And in our process, in our execution we have done today, we have connected to disk and retrieved files out of it, right? So what are the prerequisites required for it? Right? So Dell Boomi Atom is a process running as a particular user on operating system. So that user should have permissions on the file system for read and write. Right? So this is one prerequisite that have to be taken care, else you'll be finding errors in your process. Networked connection of data locations for shared resources. Okay, a peer-to-peer or VPN configuration to access private network. So these are the prerequisites that should be there. And in most of the sessions, people usually ask this question: how the Atom and data center are being communicated? Or Atom is something downloaded onto your system, right, on your local system. How this Atom and the Dell Boomi platform are being communicated, right? So this will be one usual question asked by everyone. So this is how it gets communicated. All communication from Atom to Dell Boomi data center uses SSL 128-bit encryption. Right? Atoms communicate via port 443, so which is a secured port. Atom uses a standard SSL handshake to authenticate with platform.boomi.com. Right? So now if you see here, this is your local Atom. The local Atom first initiates the discussion with Dell Boomi platform. So it extends the heartbeat. It sends all this online status, tracking information, integration process, execution status. So with a secure layer, this gets communicated. Atom communicates with platform with this status. So when when the status is online, Dell Boomi platform shows you that particular Atom on the UI. And say if this heartbeat is not exchanged for a while between Atom and platform considers that Atom is off, is not able to receive the messages, and so it shows the Atom in offline. So by this, the Dell Boomi platform and the local Atom communicates with each other. Right? So when Atom initiates connection with data center, it first authenticates with SSL handshake. So with this, a secured communication is established. And once this heartbeat is exchanged to platform then responds to Atom with the it sends data to Atom to execute any process. Say if there is any scheduled processes that have to be executed, platform sends that information to Atom and Atom then executes that process. So it loads all the shapes into its Atom directories and it's executing from here. For that reason, you'll see all data being populated here. So Atom, this were first empty, but then, this were first empty. But then this Atom communicated with platform, loaded all these components into its directory and executed from here with the data. So this is how the actual execution happens, right? So this is the end of our Dell Boomi session 1. If you have any questions, please let us know. Thank you. Have a good day.